Um, right, guys. So today is more about. So the topic is divided into two. One is about the sports startup ecosystem, and one is my journey with PlayO. So today I'll be talking about the sports startup ecosystem. What's the scope? What are the different opportunities? What are the different markets? I have a presentation to go along with the talk. So I'll just share my screen. And so I faced some audio problems yesterday when I was just testing this. So in case you guys can't hear me, Madhu, maybe you can flag it out. Yeah. And before we begin, I think Airbenders is doing something which every team strives to do. They've first thing they last year the biggest club, I think one of the most organized club in India. They have a legal team, they have an account. Now they've been doing this something outside Ultimate too. So I think this is very key in getting the club to grow and the sport to grow and getting the word out there. So great stuff, Airbenders. More power to you.
Thank you so much. That's super sweet. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Right. Right, guys. Should I begin? Is everyone on mute? Good to go? Madhu?
Yeah, let's start.
All right. So the start, the sports business, or rather, before that, I'll take a few steps back and I'd like to categorize all the industries, right? I'm talking about B2C, which is business to customer industries, right? There is the industry of necessity, which are platforms like Dunzo, Big Basket, Redbus, which help you with convenience in getting stuff that you need, right? It could also be your e-commerce platforms like Flipkart and Amazon. So your necessities are dealt with these startups. Then you have the industry of entertainment. This is where they help you get access to entertainment, like let's say a music show, a movie, or a play in a much easier way. So it could be Insider, it could be Book My Show. Now, the thing that drives the industry of necessity is necessity, right? And the only thing that you can do there is add convenience to it, to sort of acquire users on that end. In terms of entertainment, you've got to start creating, you've got to have the best content in the city. I mean, you can't build three Book My Shows. Let's say there are three Book My Shows and one of them is hosting Coldplay and the other two are hosting a local band. It's not really in your hands. It's what content you get is what you can sell, right? And then finally, we are in the industry of sports, which is the industry of passion. So the good thing about sports is because it runs on passion, it has a good stickiness to it. So when you have someone who starts playing a certain sport and gets hooked to it, we know that we don't need a huge marketing campaign, a repeated reminder that or rather you do need it, but not to the extent that the other businesses need it. Okay? But let's go to the basics and let's just figure out uh, why do we play. So maybe some of you all can just send a message on the chat and tell me why you guys play. I'll just wait for a few seconds. Maybe a minute. Why do you play? And we'll get these answers. We'll connect them to businesses later. If you guys don't answer, I'll make up answers that fit my talk. Again, just requesting everyone to go on mute. Yeah. The chats are coming in. Awesome. So we have to stay fit. I'm writing these down. To be mentally active, for the love of the game, have fun, community, right? Yeah. Awesome. Fun. Fitness, peace of mind. Awesome. right? So these are thanks for fitting in very well into my talk. I think most of these answers will work. So I'll go back. Um, so why do humans play? So these are reasons why we play, right? But why do we play? So there's something called Maslow's theory of needs. This is it's a psychological theory which is based on motivation, right? So whatever happens, the first thing that we need to satisfy is our physiological needs, which is food, shelter, sex, and other things, right? Which are the most bare necessities that's required. Once you have that, you move on to the next level, which is safety, right? So this could be the law, the cops, banks coming in. So this is when safety comes in, and then there comes love and belonging and esteem. This is where sports sort of fits in. Now, love and belonging, I think Sahana mentioned community, right? So many of us come just to have fun, just to belong to a certain community, to feel like a team, right? And then there are a few people who play to compete, and this is where esteem comes in from an ultimate perspective, right? Just talking about our teams, but esteem goes a little further. Where let's say there's a Manchester United fan and a Chelsea fan, you've seen them argue as though it's their own teams, their own home clubs that are losing a match or winning a match. So that's when esteem comes into play. So what's the importance of knowing where a certain market fits into the Maslow's theory of needs? As it goes higher in the pyramid, the amount of expenditure that a person can afford is higher, which is why your price points can be higher. But as it goes higher, your market size also reduces. So keeping that in mind, we move on to what are the different types of sports participations that are there. So I'm going to send out a small form. It's a Google form. Right, 1 second. So this form has 3 options, and it's a multiple choice thing. So you can pick all 3 answers, you can pick 2 or 1. So make sure you read all and just pick this. The link is not clickable, so just copy paste it in a browser if you can. And I'll just wait for a minute. Sorry guys, going to make you work a bit. 10 responses already. Great. Awesome. So we've got 27 responses. Right. So the questions were, check all that apply, right? So you have you represented your state or your country? Do you watch a sport or follow a sport? And do you play sports just recreationally? And you can see how the bar chart is increasing as we go down, further down, right? So that's exactly what the sports market also looks like. Going back to the presentation, right? So we spoke about the first thing. How many of you all have represented the country? Right? So these are the professionals. So the ball or the disc does exactly what you tell them to do. So this industry is driven by, it's a very small industry, right? But it's a heavy money paying industry. So this industry includes, it could be the athletes, it goes into sports analytics, it goes into sports gear, sports equipment. It also goes as low as grassroots, right? That's where all the money is. That's where people put in all the money so that they can finally make it to the professional circuit. Um, once you're done with the professional circuit, the second market that's slightly much bigger than this, but not the biggest market, are the fans. That's one, two. Yeah, fan of benders. So these guys are, you know, are passionate about their team or about a certain sport, right? So that's where you can drive a lot of money from. So that's where you can see a lot of companies like Dream 11 coming in. You have fan engagement platforms that come in, fantasy leagues that come in, right? And then finally, the recreational player. So I'm just happy that I own a disc and I just want to play. So the recreational player is a tricky one, not a very consistent one. This is where PlayO comes in. We try to get the recreational player to play as much as possible and play as many sports as possible. Because, like some of us said, right? Some of us play just to be part of something, just to go meet friends. Some of us play because we want to stay fit. Some of us play because we want to be mentally active, right? That's primarily what drives a recreational player, right? These motivations of each segment are very important because these are what come into when you're marketing your final product. Now let's move on. So these are the different people out there, right? Let's move on to the different markets that are out there for us. The first market that we have are online sports platforms. If you haven't downloaded PlayO yet, please do download PlayO. If you have downloaded PlayO, you can send a smiley or you don't have to send anything. If you haven't downloaded PlayO, send a unicorn icon emoji. Okay, I'm just kidding. It's hard to find a unicorn emoji. Okay, we've got smileys coming. I hope it's a smiley. Yeah, Alex. All right. So the online sports market, right? So what does the online sports market consist of? It's not just PlayO, obviously. We have social platforms like PlayO. We have online media. There's a big dearth of online media, especially for Indian sports. There are quite a few people who are coming up these days. There's Bridge.in, there's Creed.on, there's Fisto Sports. All these guys are specifically writing about Indian sports athletes, right? So there's a big gap that you can fill there. But apart from that, can you write opinion pieces? You can also go into Sportskeeda is the biggest media house out there for sports, but they don't really have a big moat around themselves. So you can always differentiate yourself with the kind of content you're writing, and always get forward. I just look into the chats. I feel like there are 9 chats. Okay, all about PlayO. Right. So the second market that's out there is the sports management, the sports goods market. So the sports goods market is a big market indeed because this market caters to the recreational player, the a fan because team merchandise and the professional player. So this market consists primarily of wearables, gears and kits, and recently even VR and AR. That's also become quite a bit in the market. And finally, we have sports management. So, what's sports management? Sports management, we have team management, we have event management, we have and sports analytics, we have marketing, we have venue management. So, uh, now see, most of the things that I've been telling you all have been on the B2C side, not the B2B side. So there's a big undiscovered market, which to be honest, I'm not too aware of in on the B2B side because through my journey with PlayO, I've always been on the B2C side. Right? So please, I mean, if you guys are very interested in the sports ecosystem in the B2B side, please, you'll have to do your own research a bit because I can't help you too much with that. Right? What's the market size and the scope, right? Fitness and sports clubs in the world, the market size is about 110 billion, and in India, it's 2.6 billion, right? The sportswear and equipment space is $300 and it's 10 billion in India. Uh, a few examples of the companies that are out there: fitness and sports clubs. We have PlayO, we have CureFit, we have Gold's Gym. Okay? And on the sportswear and equipment sector, we have Decathlon, Nike, 91 Ultimate, Proline, and Nivea. Now there's so much money out there. There's all there for the taking, but is it saturated? Are there any opportunities left? Right? What hasn't been done? So these are a few of the opportunities out there. Women in sport. This is something that's been picking up quite a bit because of the history of sports. Right, sports was something that uh, maybe about a few decades back only men played. Right, so there were a lot of hurdles for women to get into sport. But the hurdles, though they are there, but there are a few companies that are working towards softening these blows. So you have people who are specifically training women in football, or we have a lot of classes or fitness sessions specifically designed for women. Can there be equipment designed for women? Can there be clothes designed specifically for women? And can it be specifically be designed for Indian women? And that's a big opportunity out there. Then you have sports betting. Sports betting isn't legal in India, but the likes of Dream Level have found a way around it. They called it sports gaming, where you apparently use your analytical skills to pick the right team, and then you play a game to get earn money out of it. So a big space to be made out. There's no Dream 11 definitely has the lion's share there, but that's only in cricket. Right? Can you and you don't need someone who, I think they've acquired about 20% of the market, and with 20% of the market, they're doing so well. All you need is about 5% of the market, and you can still earn a lot of money. So that's a great market to go into. Esports, not spoken about as much as a sport, but it's something that's picking up quite a bit. I have a few details about it in the next slides. We'll get into that. And sports analytics. Sports analytics, a few companies are working in India. There are companies like Amigo Sports who are working on sports analytics, and these are very specific to a certain sport. So if you can come up with some things that works for a certain sport or a coach, or it could just help a team, or maybe even manage a venue, and help them analyze how they've been doing, is a big market too. um, so esports, I touched upon esports. Esports has seen tremendous growth in the last week, where the likes of Dota, League of Legends, PUBG, for the Counter Strike, FIFA, all these games, Rocket League, these games have been killing it in the esports space, with viewership, with prize money, and with participation too. Right. So the participation, this is if I don't think you can see my mouse cursor, but 645 million is the projected number in 2022. Football has a follower base of about 4 billion, right? So, which is the biggest sport out there? Esports is, possibly the fourth or fifth biggest following a sport has. So that's how big esport is getting to. And an encouraging factor is 57% of the pie is in Asia. So I think we are in the home ground. Time for us to think of innovative ideas. I haven't. There is an Indian startup called MPL, which is Mobile Premier League, which is doing something in this space. But if you can come with something in the esports segment, nothing like it. Uh, just going further into the esports segment. These are the top leagues of US. So we have NFL, which is the National Football League. Then we have MLB, which is Major League Baseball, and we have NBA. LOL out there is not laughing out loud. It's League of Legends. This game in 2019, the League of Legends World Cup garnered 58 million viewers, which are higher than MLB and NBA. It was the second largest league that ran, that got second largest league viewers. English broken, right? Okay. So the viewers are only going to increase. The hurdles to getting an esports league up are much lesser, because unlike sports, which have a sport, then there's an association, and then there are clubs, esports are everything clubbed under one. So the rules can be changed faster, it can be hosted faster, and it can be played remotely. So the barriers of geography, the barriers of learning something, the barriers of taking decisions are not there. So esports is the next changer. If we're just ahead of the curve, if you really have something to do in esports, you have an innovative idea, or want to join a startup that works in esports, I think it's a great time too. So this is the prize money that was out there, right? UEFA Champions League has $89 million as the prize money, and Fortnite has $30 million as the prize money. Fortnite has 4 people playing with it, right? UEFA Champions League, we all know. Okay, so a sports startup, right? What does it take to start a sports startup? What are the different steps? What should you do? How do you start? You pick your market. Pick the professional circuit, pick the fans, pick the amateurs or the recreational players. So once you've picked these players, figure out what need are you going to solve. Are you going to provide the country with more professional players? So are you going to be helping professionals get more funding, or are you going to be helping the grassroots program? So pick your market, or it could be the fans. Like, are you going to help with the fantasy league, fan engagement? The amateur league, don't come in there. The amateur segment, recreational segment, because we are there already. Don't be a competitor, please. Uh, so that's where you, once you figure out your the lack in that segment, you fix on your product. Once you've got the product market fix, you've got to execute this, and the most key thing is the team. And these are the top 3 things that an investor also looks at. So whenever you go pitch, they look at the product market fit, and finally the team. The things that they judge you for are how much have you stayed in the sports ecosystem? What are your connects like? What's your background? Are you full-time working in the startup, or it's just a part-time stint for you, right? Next, you want to do good user research. Now, what's user research, right? You head out a paper pen, go to the place where your most ideal user exists, right? So it could be for me, it was the ground. We went to a few grounds. We asked a few people some questions. But it's very important. Very important that you ask the right questions. I've got a chat. Okay. So yeah, it's very important you ask the right questions, but it's also even more importanter to ask the questions the right way, right? So what's asking the questions the right way? So let's say uh, there's a book called The Mom Test. You guys should read it to understand how you can ask questions the right way. So the Mom Test touches upon a kid that makes a painting and goes and shows it to his mom, and asks the mom how the painting was. The mom will say it is a great painting because she doesn't want to disappoint their kid, right? So the chats are distracting me a bit. Yeah, SurveyMonkey can be used for this, right? So I mean, you can use your survey. You can use Google Forms. Madhu, the meeting's getting cancelled in 9 minutes. Is that okay? I'll try to run before that. I just got an alert that the meeting's getting cancelled in 9 minutes. All right, I'll continue anyway. Right. So you go to your mom and you tell her that, Mom, I've done this painting. What do you think about this? She will say she loves it. Right. But if I go back and tell her that, Ma, I found this painting on the road. What do you think about it? Then you'll get your honest feedback. So when you go to your user, go and ask them questions like, how do you do it right now? What are the problems that are out there? Don't give them the solution. They will say they will use it, but when you ask them to pay for the solution, they'll never pay for it. So people don't want to be rude to you. Your friends will say they'll use it, but they won't. So make sure you get a hold of this book called The Mom Test. It's a small book. Get through it, and you'll know how to ask the right questions the right way. Moving on, marketing. I'll just head out to the chat, just check if I've missed any questions. All right. In case the session gets timed out, please rejoin using the link and the password. Good. I didn't do this, so I think my session's going to get timed out. All right. Marketing, right? So marketing in sports, we followed, at least I'm going to talk about marketing from PlayO's perspective, because that's what we've done, and that's what I know. So we follow the three-tiered approach. The three-tiered approach is, we went after the core first, which is the most ideal user, the lowest hanging fruit. We got them. We went to venues where people are already playing badminton, football, and we just went and told them, do you think, do you have a problem of calling the venue and booking it? How about you use this platform? They readily accepted our platform. Once we got to them, sports is a group activity. So when we speak to one person, they have friends that they talk to. So we went to the periphery and spoke to them. They became, so we created evangelists in the first layer, which sort of translated our message to the next layer. But that's where we got exhausted, right? There are only so many people that play. What happened after that was, the third layer were people who were either lazy or not motivated, or didn't have the time, or weren't aware that you could play, or there were venues such as a venue where you can book early and play. So now this layer was a little hard to market to, because it's hard to, first you have to convince them that fitness is required, or you need to be active. And once you've convinced them that you need to be active, you've got to you've got to convince them to use your product. So it's a twofold marketing spend that goes into getting the third layer to come in. But if you need market size, if you need money, if you need investors, you need to crack the third layer too. We face this as ultimate teams. It's harder to recruit than to retain. It's harder to get people to wake up at 6 a.m., come to practice, convince them about a certain sport, about ultimate, let's say. So, but once they start playing, we know that they'll stay. But does staying mean that they're playing? So retention is not always equal to participation. We've seen a lot of people who come, who are on our WhatsApp groups, but do not play as regularly as the others. So what do you think is missing? Hey, so what's missing is retention, right? We uh, as a product, as PlayO, what we've realized is, users can play even without us. They played even before we came. They can play even after we're done. So we've got to keep reminding them that why we are there. It happened to us with Bangalore Football Stadium, where we got the stadium for all ultimate teams. But don't know. I think there's only a couple of teams that use PlayO to book the ground, right? So that gave us a case study as to why people, uh, don't need us, and we had to figure out, and we're still figuring out a way how we can get teams to book through us. And the second thing is getting people to wake up at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., right? That's a big problem, but people do want it. It is a latent need. Uh, that's why you've got to, as a company or even a team, keep motivating people. Let them know that it's been 10 days since you played your last game. Here's how the team looked today. Yeah, here's a photo of the team. You were missing in it. So you've got to keep reminding them, keep using your marketing channels to get in touch with your users. And it's not like hunger, no? I mean, you will use Swiggy, or Swiggy, you get reminded of Swiggy as soon as you're hungry. But when do you remember PlayO? So unless you have a team, unless you have a person reminding you, or you're self-conscious, you might remember playing, and then you might remember PlayO. But what if PlayO is the person that reminds you to play? Then we become your channel that you choose to play. Okay? So, important factor in communication. When you're marketing, communication is obviously key, but how do you communicate, right? So today in my presentation, I've used a lot of ultimate terms. I've used a lot of ultimate photos. So this was purely because I knew that most of my audience is going to be an ultimate community, ultimate centric crowd, right? So I spoke their language. So when you talk to your core, they talk to you, they talk to the others in the same language. They basically translate or sort of propagate the message that you're giving them. The periphery, I mean, the core gives it to the periphery, and the periphery gives it to the rest. Now, as a startup, your marketing budgets are very low, right? You can't, market to everyone. So you pick your core, think about, how, what they do, what's their sense of humor. So as a startup, you can't really communicate or spend all your marketing dollars on, on everyone. So you've got to pick your core. So we've created a brand persona where we know how our users talk, we know where they live, or rather, we've created a persona of this person, of where they live, and what music they listen to, what's their sense of humor like, what do they do on their weekends, and we use these bookmarks in our persona, and use that in our marketing campaigns. Moving from communication, it's about so this is again going back to the same point previously, where once you've marketed to your core becomes your evangelist, become your evangelist, and they sort of propagate your message to the periphery. Now the money, where's the money coming from? This is a big problem. Sports in India or in the world, the money primarily goes into the top leagues. In India, unfortunately, it's the IPL. But the money is slowly trickling down into other segments too. We have the ISL getting some money, and we have the badminton league and the TT league also getting some money. Pro Kabaddi is making a lot of noise. But how does a startup get money? So this is the rule for any startup. You start off with the 3 Fs. You go to your family, you go to your friends, or you go to fools, right? There could be a fourth F, which is conditional to if you have a father-in-law or not, right? So this is where you basically start off with your money problems. Now is your revenue model coming in, and this is very important. This is what obviously any investor would look at. You got to drive commissions, right, from whatever angle. This is how PlayO earns money. So I'll talk from a PlayO's perspective. Anytime you guys book a ground, we get a commission out of it, but we don't charge users anything extra. We get a cut from the ground, and then ads. So we've done a few ads for Red Bull. We've done a few ads for RCB. RCB launched a sports drink 2 years back. So they wanted to get in touch with a sports audience, an audience that is not a professional audience, not the fans, but people who actually play on a regular basis, right? So we sent out ads, and it worked pretty well for them. And the good thing is, this players market hasn't been structured so far. So there's no other way that people can reach out other than the obvious of Facebook and Google. And finally, cross sell. I know that a person who plays football or ultimate or badminton is an active person. So let's say there's a badminton tournament out there. I can send out a notification and cross sell them from a regular daily player to maybe even a tournament booking. Or it could be a run. Let's say there's a 10K run happening this weekend. I can shoot out a notification to all my users in that area, and I could generate more business for the run, hence increasing my commissions. So there are quite a few revenue models out there. You'll have to figure it out based on your business and your segment. And finally, it is a difficult problem to solve, but a great problem to solve. But in times the Maslow's theory of needs comes into play here. In a crisis, in recession, sports will take a back seat. We have almost no business for the last 10-15 days, right? So it is going to hit you, but if you can crack the market and if you have the right product, then nothing like it. There is good money to be made too, and we love sports, so why not, right? And this quote has stuck with me. Sports is a place where I started valuing my body for what it could do rather than what it looked like, from one of our ultimate Frisbee players. Any questions, guys? Happy to take any questions right now.
Danish, I'm Vijay here. Hi. So what are you looking to do during this time, this situation? So how is your company moving forward, and what avenues are you looking at?
Right. So see, we've always been, as the DNA of PlayO has always been about getting people outside and playing. So we didn't ever want to get into video gaming, and I don't think we will. But what we realized was people can stay at home and still be in touch with their sports. So there are a lot of gyms and academies that are putting up a lot of workouts that you can do at home, like ATC does. But there are not too many people who are doing it sports specific. So we've got sports experts who give us badminton drills that can be done at home, football drills that can be done at home. The important thing here is we're not going to make money out of this, but people are going to remember us. As soon as the lockdown is done, we know that okay, we still have their mind space, and we don't have to remarket and reacquire all these users. So just keeping in touch and just staying active in either their social media feed, or even as notifications or emailers that got weekly.
Thanks.
Yeah, sure. You guys can go off mute and ask me if you have anything.
Dan, Birdie here.
Yeah. Hey, buddy.
So when you say a company has a 20% market share,
Mm-hmm.
you said Dream 11 has a big chunk of market share. How do you
Yep.
establish that? How do you establish that percentage? And how do you calculate the market value? Like you
See,
said, 110 billion for a sports industry or something like that, right?
right. So there are companies like Traction which do this. There are companies that they release a yearly report, a quarterly report on how big the markets are, what are the sectors. So what Traction does is they qualify the sports industry into different segments like e-commerce, sports tech, sports wearables, and then they find the top players, and then uh, they calculate the value of the market that's available in terms of let's say if we had to calculate for PlayO what's my available market. I would look for metros, the sec A, sec B audience, um, and in possibly a certain areas. So I have, and so this is the market size, and then I expect I know my average spend of a user, which is let's say about 400 rupees. And if this is done weekly, I know that the possible, if I have 100% of the market, the audience that I just calculated into the number of transactions, into the average spend, gives me the market size annually. Now, out of that, I can evaluate how much I've conquered or I've captured so far. And 20% is a big number. To be honest, our market share is the world, right? I mean, we want everyone to play. So we have literally, possibly, not even captured 0.1 of the market, but we've realistically placed a market size for ourselves, which are only the metros, like I just mentioned previously. So that's how we calculate market share, market size, and then market share. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, Dan, thanks.
Sanjay Raju asks me, Daanish, you spoke about esports. Do you think esports has a greater target market since it's more accessible and ease? Uh, yes and no. See, people are very loyal to a certain game. I'm before I talk like an expert. I am not an expert at esports. I play a bit myself, but I'm not like a professional player. So, or neither does PlayO work with esports. Uh, Esports has a market out there, and it's definitely gaining a lot of eyeballs because of its ease, and its ease remotely, right? People are able to access and view these games remotely. uh, Especially during the lockdown, the number of live streamers have gone up quite a bit. It's purely because of the ease and remote access. So it's a number that's only going to increase. It's the trick is to find out how you can find the gap and get in there. Yeah, Sanjay, I hope I've answered your question. Yeah, he just
Hi,
popped.
Daanish.
Hi,
Divya
Divya.
from Airbenders. So my question is, so you are basically looking at getting players to play again and again, right? So I think you were primarily trying to resolve the issue where suppose I do want to play football, but not always my gang is ready to play. I also like can just book and go and
Exactly.
play in that particular market. Are you also to increase this frequency are you also looking at creating avenues where people can come and play? For example, like I don't know, get bunch of schools in Bangalore and then say that we will arrange like a school football league. Are you looking at marketing in that area? Did you understand what I am?
Yeah, so basically, are we looking at anything other than just bookings? Are we doing anything more than bookings and going into leagues? Right? Would that be your question, Divya?
Yeah, so it's basically creating more revenues for booking grounds, right? So if you come up with a new league, automatically they have to book a ground for that league to happen. So that will automatically increase your, I don't know, presence on your.
Yeah, correct. Thanks, Divya. So it's a very tempting market out there, but it's a manpower heavy market where we've done this for a few corporates. We've not gone into schools. We haven't gone into colleges. Uh, so we have a page on PlayO where a corporate can send out an inquiry. Uh, they can tell us which date, what they're looking for. They just have to give us the bare minimum, and we'll get on a call with them. We'll fix up the schedule for them. We'll help them with the grounds. We'll help them with the referees, food, all of that, and also get a commission from this. But this is we don't know if the corporate is going to come back. But it's a for the at the time being we can manage this, but will this be core to our business? Maybe no. But we are doing this. And Divya's question, I think I'll take a tangent out of there. And venues are a big problem in any place, right? There are only so many private venues out there, but there are a lot of schools which have grounds. There are a lot of colleges that have grounds. There are a lot of apartments that have swimming pools, that have badminton courts. So PlayO so far has tied up with primarily the private venues. Our goal is to get everyone and every venue on board. So let's say people residing in an apartment should be able to challenge each other on the app, book their apartment badminton court, and maybe go play, right? So we want to get to a level where we are not hyper local. We should be operational in Mysore. We should be operational in Udupi. Udupi has grounds, but why don't they use PlayO? So that's where we want to get to, where we don't want to be venue dependent. We want to be a community where people can just find each other and play. That's what we want to get to. So I've got a question from KP. How do you get into the minds of KP? If you can just post your question publicly, it'll be great. How do you get into the minds of the audience psychologically? I mean, what exercises do you recommend? A big mistake that founders do are they think they are the most ideal customer, right? If I go out and I think that I play ultimate, let's say 3-4 days a week, I spend X amount of money on shoes. I have a disc and everything. But if I think that the whole of Bangalore plays ultimate and I try marketing to them, then I'm not going to get any users. I cannot uh, assume that I'm the user. I'm the most ideal user at least. So what we do is we do a few exercises where we go through Google Analytics, which gives us a fair idea of what our most ideal user looks like or what the demographics of our users are. But apart from users who are PlayO loyalists and are the most active user. So we want to basically replicate the most active user. So when we get on a call, we have a few questions for them as to, nothing related to sports at times, right? It could just be like, how was your day? What did you do this morning? Why don't you play on weekends? Why do you play on weekdays, right? So that's when we understand that, okay, IT parks, locations near IT parks are key because that's where the venues are, and that's why people prefer playing on weekdays. And then we figured that our audience are not Bangaloreans, which is why most of the venues that have come up in the IT sector. And there are very few venues, but the venues that are coming up in JP Nagar, Malleshwaram, but not as many as the ones in Bellandur, Marthahalli. So getting into the psyche of the user is all about just talking as much as possible. And uh, most of the users are willing to talk to you because they want something from the platform. They love the attention. So the more you give of it, they are willing to give you more feedback too. Okay, so you mentioned women in sports as still a gap in the market. Does PlayO currently do or have any plans to do to increase participation of women in sports? Um, we we try, but we haven't tried enough because funds are a big issue. So for us, growth is a big factor, and there's only so much you can spend. So I wouldn't spend my money immediately on people who are a little more far-fetched, right? So I'm putting women in the category because the condition is so. It's the real situation these days, right? But uh, I would spend. So we spend. We don't even spend marketing dollars on ultimate players for that matter, right? We spend majorly on football and badminton. We don't even spend on cricket players. That's because we know we have, a great supply of football and badminton venues, and we can get these users and make sure they get a venue. But when it comes to ultimate, we can't. Now with women, the problem is either because of how our society works, women haven't been given an opportunity to get introduced to sport, uh, which is why we have to first educate and then eventually get them onto play. So what we do on the other hand is it's not like we haven't done anything at all. There are quite a few people, these evangelists that I spoke about on PlayO. There are quite a few women who have groups. They have groups. I think some of them, one of them also played with Benders. Someone called Rochelle, who had an ultimate session with Airbenders. So she found her group through PlayO. So she hosts about, I think, 3 badminton games, 2 football games every week, and some games she plays, some games she doesn't. That's one, right? The second thing is we write a lot. So there are 5 things that we write about. One is knowledge, which is about the sport or how to play it. Second is skill. Third is equipment. Fourth is how to find a venue and how to find a player. So in knowledge and skill is where we speak a lot about how you can play a game without getting injured, why warm-ups are necessary. So hopefully this will reduce the hurdles in women coming to play. And we also write about what you should wear to play, right, which is very important and essential. So we do our bit, but to be honest, we haven't done enough, or I'm sure there's a lot more that can be done. We don't have the money to do it at the moment. I have another question from Aki. What is your first investment in PlayO post the first series of funding? From your experience, what do you believe should be an ideal investment for an investor looking at growth? Aki, are you looking for the amount? Are you looking for the amount that they invested?
No, no, no. What was your first investment in PlayO with the money that you got? Like, what was your idea how to grow the organization? What was your plan with the funding that you received? I mean, what is your first investment? What is the first thing that came to my mind? And post that, like, since it's been like few years, what do you believe now should be or would have been an ideal investment for an investor who's looking at a growth from an organization like PlayO?
I think for PlayO, our first investment was tech, which was wrong, right? We should have put our first investment into user research, gone out, spoken to enough people, because the first product that we built failed in about 3 months. We built a website, we got about 2 venues onboarded, but didn't really work for us. And that's when our second investment was when we went finally spoke to a lot of users. What happened was when we spoke to these users, we knew who our first 100 customers are going to be because they had already spoken to us. They had heard about, that these guys are working on something. And the second investment was tech. Marketing came in only after a year, maybe, because most of the marketing was done in person, where we went to these venues, made sure the founders were at these venues and they were talking to the users who were, playing there. And so our marketing spend was very less, and we also sort of put in a mindset where we got lucky, in fact, that playing is a group activity. It's so when you spoke to one badminton player, eventually others got to know about us, unlike, let's say, other markets. Hope that answers your question, Aki.
Hello, Daanish. This is Vineet from Airbenders.
Hey, Vineet. Hi.
So I had a question regarding to the booking side of how PlayO works.
Mhm.
As I just wanted to know, has PlayO ever considered to make bookings compulsory only through PlayO to book grounds for players? Because
See,
I've come
yeah.
across situations where bookings usually happens through phones also,
Mhm.
or sometimes PlayO bookings are cancelled when we go to the ground itself.
All
So
right.
has PlayO ever considered to make it compulsory for these people to have bookings only through PlayO?
So to be honest, it's not in our hands, right? It's we don't own the venue, we don't own the inventory. Um, Only if, let's say, there are two ways if we ever need to make it compulsory. We can go the cure fit, the cult way, where we own all the venues and you have to book it through the app. That's one way. The second way is we buy inventory for the whole month and nobody can book it in any other way. So if anyone ever wants to book that venue, they book it through us. And the problem comes in there, both the solutions are capital heavy. So that's why we've invested a lot more in the relationships with the venues. And there are a few venues that at least about 90% of the bookings come through PlayO. And there are one or two scenarios where people have walked in and their bookings have been cancelled. Those have been either, it's majorly a manual error where they might have not booked an offline booking, a call booking that came in, or a tournament was planned suddenly and they had to cancel the existing bookings. So this doesn't happen too often, but it does happen and we're trying to avoid it. But the solutions are too capital heavy at the moment.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, sure.
Hey Dan, can you hear me?
Yeah, Alex. Hi.
So Dan, I don't know if you can give out this information. So on PlayO, a lot of people go to book as a group, right? You already know who you're going to play with. Either Ultimate or Football or whatever it is. How many people utilize the apps facility where you can join a group where there's a sport that's already happening? What is that ratio, and is that growing? And what sport is it growing in?
Right. So the number of players who join games is 3:1. Two bookings is 3:1. So for every booking, there are at least 3 players who join a game. So the ratio is much higher for people looking out for games. And unfortunately, it's growing only in limited sports. In badminton, it's the highest because of the factors that it's a smaller team. So it's usually what works is either someone's looking for another player or they're looking for another player to fill in their doubles team, right? With football, we thought it'll be a bigger problem because I'm going out and I need to look for 9 strangers to find a team. But the bigger problem with football was that usually teams have 10 players and there are 1 or 2 dropouts. So this team that has 8 players hosts a game on PlayO and they tell that they're looking for 2 players and these 2 players come in. So it's been happening quite a bit for football, badminton, cricket, and tennis and TT. But other sports aren't seeing enough traction, primarily because we haven't marketed enough for other sports, and there's also a dearth of venues. Like let's say someone wants to play squash, there are only about 5 venues, at least on PlayO, that can be booked, right? Whereas badminton, there are about 180 venues in Bangalore.
Thanks.
Yeah, but it would be a great advice to just host an ultimate game for all teams. You never know. So if you want us to play to automate anything for you all, or maybe promote a certain activity, let's say Alex has hosted an ATC activity, at Coxtown at whatever time, and you can just tell us that ultimate is a growing sport. Can you promote it to a certain audience living in that area? We can definitely do that. And we can definitely do that at no cost initially because it's a new sport that's growing. Right. Okay. So we're ending the question with Nikki's session. How do you analyze how effective your marketing campaign was, and what kind of data set do you work on, or factors do you consider to analyze that? Right. Uh, So there is something called the R matrix. Okay, I'll just type it down. Some marketers will know this, right? So it's AARRR. It's called the pirate metric because it's R. Okay. So you start off with acquisition, activation, revenue, referral. I missed out on something. Okay, I'll come back to that. So this is primarily how you measure. So once you've acquired a user, it's our job to make sure they get activated on PlayO. So activated on PlayO is basically making a booking or hosting a game. So when someone hosts a game, we know that this person is playing for at least an hour. So the one metric that PlayO tracks for to see the success of the quality of the user that's come in is the other number of activities or number of games this person has played. So we do not always look at revenue from the user because revenues can be generated through other means of ads or cross sell. We primarily look at how many games has this person been playing. Yeah, Pranav just helped me with, it's acquisition, activation, revenue, retention, and referral, right? So this is where this is what we follow. Using this, we make sure that revenue is slightly down the order, but we make sure people are acquired and activated on PlayO as much as possible, and eventually we figure out retention and revenue models for these users. So the only factor that, just going back to your question, the only factor that matters to us are the number of activities that a person hosts or joins in a week. Right, guys, if you guys need anything more, you can get in touch with me. I'll just share the screen again. Yeah, that's me. You can drop me a mail or follow me or just get my number from someone. I can provide my number too. But you do need anything about sports, about the startup ecosystem in general too, happy to help. So next week I'll be going through my journey with PlayO. It's a very short journey. So it's a fun talk. So may join me next week too. And thank you so much for joining for today's talk.
Thank you, Daanish.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Daanish.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, guys, for joining. I'm just about to end the meeting. Thank you.